Hey, New York. It's Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. We're coming your way.
For one night on April 17th, we are going to be hosting a meetup with you guys in New York.
Get more information by heading to our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, and click on the Eventbrite pop-up.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect.
The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Nesta fights her new routine at every turn. Refusing to eat and train, she uses her words like knives to show her displeasure, especially with Cassian, whose patience starts to crack under the constant rejection. At Windhaven, Nesta humiliates the general in front of his fellow Illyrians as she drowns in hauntings from the cauldron and her father's death. Meanwhile, Cassian is forced into political games with Eris and the Band of Exiles, leaving him feeling outmatched and raw. Although the tension between Nesta and Cassian comes to a head that sends both into a tailspin, Nesta finds unexpected sparks of connection in her meetings with Emery and Quinn.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up book talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you'd give a classic in literature class, just with more homework. More humor. Humor. More homework for us, less homework for you.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through 2 different literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing A Court of Silver Flames, the most divisive book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. In this episode, we cover chapters 5 through 11.
For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about Spilt. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers, this episode covers A Court of Silver Flames with full context from the preceding books in the ACOTAR series. That's Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, Wings and Ruin, Frost and Starlight. If you haven't read those, well then why are you listening? This is your only spoiler warning. Anything in SJM's other series will be saved for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode that airs this Thursday.
Perspective and interpretation. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text, and when we read our listener feedback, it's their personal readings of the text. We don't speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We love hearing them, so share away.
Language. We use explicit language and can't help ourselves. We will not grow. So keep your headphones in and kids away.
Themes. We will discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website. If you want exclusive content and live streams, you'll find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
Can't get enough analysis? Make sure to check out the Subtext Society Journal, where we write think pieces discussing the romance and romantasy genres as a whole, the ongoing conversations in the bookish community, and insights into the publishing world. Join us over at the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com.
Each week, we ask ourselves a question. Do Nesta's actions warrant the title of traditional antihero? And does the characterization of a female antihero challenge the reader?
Themes we see in this section include healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms, self-deprecation, and words as weapons. We start this episode in Chapter 5, and we get a classic food is power moment, one of several that we're going to see in this episode. I believe we discussed food is power last time.
Yeah, but like not as much as this episode. I feel like this episode, it really comes in.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do I need to redefine it again for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Food is power.
Food as a form of power. It demonstrates power dynamics or symbolizes power dynamics in this case sometimes. And we start with Cassian and Nesta at breakfast. And Cassian is telling Nesta, you got to eat. Your body has to have enough fuel for training. Quote, Nesta looked up from the plate of scrambled eggs and steaming bowl of porridge. I'm not eating this. Cassian dug into his own portion, nearly double what lay before her. It's either that or nothing. Now, in my mind, this should have been Cassian's first clue. Nesta isn't going to train today. She wants to be weak because being weak allows her to wallow. For her to consume the food would be to accept, okay, I am going to train. Okay, I do need strength. On the opposite hand, Cassian's portions are double in size, which is a testament to his strength, which he has a lot of compared to Nesta. And as I know, she does enjoy watching. Now, I'm convinced that Nesta's decision to eat has several layers, and we're going to repeatedly see this throughout this episode, but I kind of want to highlight them right now. There are going to be several times that Nesta acknowledges, and as we discussed last week, that she believes she is a waste of space. Therefore, in my mind, she doesn't deserve to feed her body. She wants to waste away to nothing. I also think that Nesta suppresses her desire to eat the same way she suppresses her emotions and her memories. It is an undesirable thing or need that she is trying to control. By being hungry, because we're going to see, Nesta craves activities that quiet her mind. And to what extent does hunger pangs distract her from what's happening in her head? It's just a question. And lastly, whether she knows it or not, being hungry takes her back to a time when her father was alive and she was human and together with her sisters, even if they couldn't stand each other. Now, Cassian does call this out, which I will turn over to Jack.
I don't remember, but I believe you. And I wrote the notes yesterday, so who knows? Anyway, Nesta is back to wearing her fighting leathers, and I absolutely love the contrast that it shows within her. Quote, Nesta kept perfectly still in her chair, keenly aware of every movement in the fighting leathers she donned. She'd forgotten how it felt to wear pants, the nakedness of having her thighs and ass on display. So before, Nesta's only really worn dresses, and a little bit in Wings and Ruin, she wore some pants, and even then she struggled with this. And again, she's wearing pants, and it's making her feel like her nakedness is on display. It's hilarious because just the day before, there was a male in her bed and she was walking around naked, no problem. She's a lot more relaxed with her body and yet not comfortable in pants. I kind of feel that, but not because it feels like it shows my ass, but because I don't like sitting down with pants, with jeans. Pants could represent an inner power and strength that she's not ready to take on because really she's watched Farah dress in pants and hunt with pants on, and all the while she sat back and watched. So pants could also mean a survival in a way that she's never experienced before. She's never had to wear the pants of the family, literally.
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at moments when Cassian tries to relate to Nesta. Quote, not eating won't bring your father back. That has nothing to do with this, she hissed. Nothing. He braced his forearms on the table. We're going to cut the bullshit. You think I haven't gone through what you're dealing with? You think I haven't seen and done and felt all that before? And seen those I love deal with it too? You aren't the first and you won't be the last. What happened to your father was terrible, Nesta, but she shot to her feet. You don't know anything. It's like such a, like, hey, I'm going to go straight for the kill immediately. Like, even when your therapist is talking to you, very rarely do they go straight for the kill. I've had a couple therapists when they're like, no, we're not wasting our time. I'm going straight in for this. And you're like, excuse me. However, he's right in a way, but he's also punishing her for this failure, for not eating.
Yeah, he is punishing her for not eating, which emphasizes the fact that she's also punishing herself. Nesta is wielding hunger as a weapon in so many different ways. I even think she's not eating to spite her father for his sacrifice.
Yeah.
The same way she didn't help Feyre hunt because she wanted to spite her father for not doing his part. So now she's like, well, fuck you for saving me. I'm going to waste away anyway.
Yeah. Spiteful. Like she's the most accurate depiction of a spiteful character.
Yep.
Third of this point is the continued double standards of others being allowed to act out when she cannot. I believe Feyre changed the way that they view trauma because they get 19-year-old Feyre who has gone through the gauntlet, quite literally, underneath the mountain, and she recovered, or at least strived to. You can argue she's still recovering within months. Within months, she was like, you know what? I'm feeling good now. Dick can save you. When it's the Night Landlord. What? High Lord. Okay. Not that Nesta isn't doing the right thing. I don't want to say that she is on the right road of forgiveness, but there's just going to be this continued narrative of like, everyone else has gone through this, Nesta, but you need to suck it up. Why are they way more hard on her?
I think you make a good point that Feyre didn't get over her trauma, but processed her trauma pretty quickly. And in the same amount of time, Nesta's just degraded herself more and more, right? So it's easy for them to forget that these things take time because Feyre, who was human who turned Fae, got through it fast. So Nesta, who was human turned Fae, should also be able to get through it fast. And that's just not the case. They also seem to forget that Feyre didn't eat at the start of Mist and Fury. And they handled her with kid gloves because Rhys was there. And in my opinion, because they don't respect Cassian the way they respect Rhys, therefore they treat Nesta as roughly as they would treat Cassian.
So you made a note that they're harsher on Cassian. So I like where you're going with this. So I agree. They respect Rhys, therefore they're going to respect Feyre. They respect Rhys way more than any of each other, right? I think because Cassian, not that they don't respect him or that they're harsher on him, I think Cassian is the one who puts on the braver face. And they expect him to put on a brave face, so you would expect his partner to put on the brave face, right? He is the joking around. He's the one who is like, come on, guys, like, we'll get through this. And why wouldn't his partner be the same way? So, yeah, they're not harsh on him. I think they just expect lack of depth from him.
Right. Well, he's the general who goes to war, who trains warriors, right? He can handle this.
Yeah.
And therefore, Nesta should also be able to take this.
Yeah.
Whatever they throw at her.
I hate the way they treat her.
I do too.
Anyway, so Amy was talking about food as power. I will be talking another concept that I did back in the day, and I'm going to bring it in here and I'll explain it. But that is food as masturbation. Quote, and when there was nothing left, she scooped up her plate and bowl and held his stare as she dumped her dishes atop each other. The sound of rattling silverware filled the room. She rose again, stalking towards him. The doorway beyond him. He stood as well. Nesta could have sworn he wasn't breathing as she passed. So this comes in from my dissertation and my master's degree where I talked about Twilight and that Edward essentially forcing Bella to eat and watching her was a form of masturbation since he could not eat. Now, slightly different because Cassian can obviously eat, but he can eat pussy. Sorry.
You went there.
I did. So sorry for any new listeners who don't know us. Anyway, this isn't the same type of masturbatory act as it is in Twilight. However, there is a certain level of him watching her eat. And because there's just so much sex between them, it becomes a battle of will. I mean, and that's also what's happening is a battle of will of who breaks first to have sex, right? Wants to have sex, right? And
can I ask a clarifying question? You said because there's so much sex between them. Do you mean sexual tension?
Yeah, I mean, eventually sex, like sexual tension. There's just so much sexual tension and eventually sex. Yeah, I mean, like it's going to manifest in different ways. It's the same way that it's going to manifest when he eventually starts training her. It's going to manifest and continuously with food. So Nesta reflects on one of their more emotional moments from ACOTAR when Cassian told her, quote, I have no regrets in my life but this, that we did not have time, that I did not have time with you, Nesta. I will find you again in the next world, the next life, and we will have that time, I promise. Oh my God, it's destroy me. However, it's smart. It's very smart what SJM is doing right now, because the reader can guess their mates. No one is surprised by the end when they're like, they're mates. I think we all knew it, right? And
Right.
SJM isn't hiding it. I think by making it clear, like this whole thing between them, that they're mates, the journey ends up being about Nesta accepting it and Cassian having enough faith in Nesta to not break him.
I think that's such a great point that at the end of the day, we all know the secret that isn't so secret. And it's about, can they survive each other's lowest moments to get through to the other side? Now, we are going to see both Nesta and Cassian have a ton of memories come up throughout these chapters. And for Nesta, this is the first of 3 that she experiences before she kind of loses it and then attempts to descend the 10,000 steps in Valoris. Quote, she relived those moments more often than she cared to admit. The press of his fingers as he cupped her face, the way his mouth had felt and tasted, tinged with blood but still tender. She couldn't bear it. That was directly after her recalling the quote that Jack read. Nesta hates that these memories pop up and they are beyond her control. She can control her power, she can control her hunger, but her mind is a completely different beast, and so are those memories. It is especially true when the memories evoke love, right? It's somebody expressing love for another person or performing an act of love for another person. It is the same love as she keeps denying herself, just like she denies herself food, just like she denies herself access to her power. She doesn't believe she deserves these things. And it's really going to agitate her when they keep coming up. Now, Cassian knows he's in for a fight today, at least of the verbal kind. And so he's prepared and uses his humor as a shield. Nesta says, quote, you're a brute. He winked. Born and raised. He's going to keep using that shield until even that cannot deflect the pain that Nesta causes him.
Yeah. So not a ton of notes in this next part, but it needs to be read. Quote, if you think this training nonsense is going to result in you climbing into my bed, you're delusional. She added with a slice of a smile. I'd sooner let a mangy street dog. Oh, it's not going to result in me climbing into your bed. Nesta snickered, victory achieved, and had reached the stairs when he crooned, you'll climb into mine. You guys, we're back. It's Sexy Chicken. We're back to Sexy Chicken. If you don't know what we're referencing, Mist and Fury Season 2. And we talked about the Sexy Chicken lingerie shop that we also were talking about the children's hospital, the Valoris Children's Hospital that gets destroyed. That we're like, I was remembering that. We're like, why is Farah going to go save the arts district when the children's hospital is just left abandoned there? This is the same season. We lost it that season.
We did.
Anyway, it's a good use of sex as a form of power and trying to figure out who's the weaker one.
And, just some classic foreshadowing of the fun that is to come. It's just not going to come in this episode.
No, they'll come soon enough.
Hey.
Sex is such an interesting part of the story and the dynamic of sex between Cassian and Nesta. Quote, when had he last had a satisfying roll in the sheets? Certainly not since the war. Maybe since before Farah had freed them all from Amarantha's grip. Cauldron boil him. It had been a month before Amarantha had fallen, hadn't it? With that female he met at Rita's, in an alley outside the pleasure hall, against a brick wall, quick and dirty and over within minutes. Neither he nor the female wanting anything more than sweet release. That had been more than 2 years ago. It had been his hand ever since. One of the things that I believe readers struggle with when it comes to Nesta is the gender reversal when it comes to sex. In books, women are usually the more modest ones. They're the ones who are not having as much sex, and they play the more quote-unquote pure role. Even when characters do have sex, it'll be like, as soon as she met him, she hasn't had sex with anyone in so long. But sometimes the MMC will still go and sleep around. And I don't think readers know how to forgive Nesta for not having sex with Cassian while Cassian is celibate. I think people are not going to forgive her for not having sex for the first time with Cassian. And I think readers condemn her just as much as everyone else in the inner circle does. I think part of the reason why the inner circle resents her is the fact that she's sleeping around with anyone else while Cassian is sitting here with just his hand. I do believe it's a nice counter, though, like between the two of them, that Nesta is having sex while Cassian is not. It's a form of punishment for each of them, right? It's punishing Cassian because he's holding back from having sex, and it's punishing Nesta because she's sleeping with someone that's not the person she wants to sleep with, which is Cassian.
I completely agree. Now, I know that Cassian explicitly states he has sex before the fall of Amarantha, so while Rhys was with Amarantha. I also think, though, in some ways, Cassian withholds sex from himself to punish himself for Rhys getting trapped under the mountain with Amarantha. He doesn't say how frequently he was having sex with people during that 50 years, but I'm gonna guess not very often, given his interaction with this one individual, where it was just about release. I think Nesta and Cassian may appear as opposites to some readers, but these chapters are going to show just how alike they are and how they are two sides of the same coin. Now, there is a power that Nesta wields over Cassian, and that's with how she uses her body language. We see it here. We're going to see it a little bit later. Even though, in Nesta's mind, from her point of view, she thinks she's slinking about in her leathers because she's uncomfortable, Cassian sees it differently. Quote, "Every word, every language he knew had vanished at the sight of her striding past, straight-backed and unhurried as any noble lady presiding over her household." Now, Cassian doesn't say it, but the imagery that we're seeing through his point of view conveys Cassian's sense of inferiority compared to Nesta. In this instance, she's the noble lady, while he's the bastard brute from a warrior tribe. Again, he doesn't think it outright. There's a lot of things Cassian and Nesta don't think outright, but we see it through the images that they use while we're in their perspective. And this is a clue as to how biased Cassian's perspective is, especially when it is in opposition to him. There's a lot of times he's going to think very, very lowly of himself.
Yeah, they both hate themselves very, very much so.
Yeah.
Now, I've said it before, and I will say it again, probably throughout the whole entire season. The emotional arc of these characters will not be them discovering their own feelings. Nesta knows that her dad dying fucked her up. Cassian knows that he is scared to open up to Nesta, but it's about facing them. Quote, "It had cracked an intrinsic piece of him, some final resistance and shred of hope that everything they endured during the war might amount to something. That when he spilled his heart to her as he lay dying, that when she covered him with her body and chosen to die alongside him, she'd chosen him too. Stupid fucking hope, and one he should have known better than to harbor. Oh, baby boy." So this right here is his journey. Nesta has shut him down hard, and he has been burned by her significantly multiple times, but really poorly that one time when he threw his present into the river. And it's going to be about learning to open up to her again, which I feel like he does very easily in my mind. But I think his battle is to not want to get hurt again. To continue this, he thinks, quote, "He'd come so close to making a stupid mistake that night, to laying his heart bare for her to rip out of his chest. He hardly managed to walk away with some semblance of pride. Over his cold, dead body would she do that to him again." This book is so clear about what it's about from the start. It's SJM saying, hey, this is going to be about politics in a very things are moving in the background kind of way and strategizing. There's not going to be a lot of larger plot happening. And the main plot is going to be Cassian and Nesta's emotional arc, that this book is character driven. And I think it's funny because one of the biggest complaints people have on this book is that nothing happens. Like there's no plot. And it's like, well, the plot is their character arc. Like that is this book.
Yeah, which says something about what's going to come next, because if SJM chooses to slow down the actual physical plot for this emotional arc. What comes next in the plot is going to be reliant on the strength of this emotional arc, which is very, very interesting. I mean, that's my hypothesis. Why else would you slow it down? Or it's reliant on Rhys not wanting to kill Nesta. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's why this book has to have like a bunch of little like, and then this happens, and then this happens.
Yeah. What's also clear from this thought process is, as we're going to see, Cassian will end up giving Nesta access to his body. But despite the physical aspect of their relationship, he's really going to struggle giving her access to his heart, which is sad because we also know that Cassian gives his heart over easily and very freely to many people. And Nesta's lost that privilege.
He doesn't tell her he loves her.
I know, which tells me it's not like by the end of the book, they might be better, but they're not fully there.
It's funny. I think someone pointed that out to SJM one time and she was surprised, which I believe shows that she let the characters do their own thing.
Or it got cut out in the editing process.
That editor ruined so much for us. There was a threesome scene between Azriel and Cassian that was taken out. Yeah. Even if it was in her imagination.
Yeah, it was sad. I do love how well crafted this moment is because Cassian and Nesta, from their points of view, we're seeing them remember the exact same moment in time. And we also see that both feel very despondent because of that memory. Now, on one hand, Nesta is despondent because she denies herself the happiness and the love that Cassian would have offered her, whereas Cassian is despondent because she denies him her feelings. And that brings Cassian really, really low. Quote, "She wanted nothing to do with him. She'd said as much at winter solstice. I've made my thoughts clear enough on what I want from you. A whole lot of nothing." Now, these mirrors that we're seeing in both Cassian and Nesta and how they're thinking, how they're remembering this moment, reminds them to stay guarded and distant from each other for different reasons, right? Nesta so she doesn't get close enough to feel pain. Cassian so he can't allow her to pain him anymore. And again, they're just the same.
Yeah.
Sweet baby birds. And what I think is also sad, and just going to keep saying this until it changes, both have lost hope since that moment during the war with Hybern, right? Cassian has lost hope in Nesta, and Nesta has lost hope in herself.
Yeah. Everyone's lost hope in Nesta, even Nesta. Nesta goes to the training camp, and this is where she meets Devlin, who wants absolutely nothing to do with her. Quote, "What's her business here?" Nesta gave him a secretive smile. "Witchcraft?" Devlin sniffed at her, his crony snickering. "Are you bleeding, witch? If you are, you will not be allowed to touch the weapons at all." I love it. You know, the power of the feminine, the power of periods, the fact that men just cannot handle a period, the weaklings. And I think that like men just don't know how to be met with badassery. And I'm not saying that Nesta's pure badassery yet. She will be by the end of this. There's a lot of reflecting of life in there. Grab a snack, stretch your legs, and listen to this while we plot our next move.
I'm really behind on my walking goal, and so I'm going to my secret drawer in my office to grab my Vionics.
You do have a secret drawer with Vionics. It's funny. I've seen it many times.
I love to wear my Vionic Uptown sneakers everywhere I go, but especially on the sprawling university campus I work at. If I have to endure the changing weather, I might as well be comfortable doing it.
And you are definitely going to be comfortable and stylish because not only are your Vionics so freaking cute, but they have Vionics exclusive biomotion technology, and that's really what sets them apart. They began revolutionizing medical orthotics. Today, they continue to use that science to engineer shoes that leave you feeling energized and confident all day.
My Bionic Uptown sneakers are the only sneakers I don't have to put my custom orthotics into because they've got responsive cushioning and contoured support that makes them perfect for all day, everyday wear.
If people knew how you really do have to insert your custom.
Man, it's such a pain. It's such a pain, but not with Bionic.
Bionic even offers an exclusive 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return them for a full 30-day refund. But honestly, I think you're going to love them.
Use code BookTalk at checkout for 15% off your entire order at bionicshoes.com when you log into your account. It's a one-time use only, so use code BookTalk, BOOKTALK, wisely.
Bionic shoes, wearable well-being for your feet.
Speaking of reflecting life, there are some subtle power dynamics going on that I love, and I don't have wings, but it reflects moments I've experienced in my own life, and that's why I enjoy it so much. When Devlin and his cronies approached Nesta and Cassian with their arrival to the camp, quote, they all had their wings tucked in tight, perhaps to walk as a unit, but as they stopped in front of Cassian, those wings spread slightly. Now, this is something birds do as well. Vultures, hawks, owls, storks, they spread their wings to appear larger and more intimidating. Note that these are all like carnivorous birds. They eat rodents, fish, other birds, cats. Sometimes makes me sad when cats and small dogs get swooped up. Nesta observes, quote, Cassian kept his wings in what Nesta called his casual spread, not wide, but not tucked in close. The position conveyed the perfect amount of ease and arrogance, readiness, and power. Of course, she's named his, like, how his wings positions are. When Devlin insists that any weapons Nesta touches need to be buried after use, he does it to pick a fight, and everybody knows it. Quote, Nesta didn't fail to note that Cassian's expression had darkened as he stared down Devlin, but he said abruptly, how are the new recruits faring? Devlin opened his mouth, then shut it, irritation flashing there at a fight denied. Cassian, like a good general, has the upper hand here. His restraint is a form of power. He controls his temper and is able to come across unfazed to defy others' expectations or desires for a fight in this case. And that throws Devlin off his footing. Who else finds power in restraining things, but maybe in an unhealthy way? Nesta. Now, when it's time to actually start training, Nesta sits on a rock and refuses to get up. Cassian asks, quote, what are you doing? Cassian's handsome face was nearly predatory. She crossed her legs at the ankles and arranged the fall of her cape like the train of a gown. Now, we are in Nesta's perspective, and she's seeing herself the way Cassian sees her, like a lady whose station is above Cassian's. She's treating her cape like a gown and sitting like a proper lady. And I genuinely think that these subtle actions bring out the worst in Cassian. And Nesta's glad of it. Quote, let him see what a waste of life, what an utter wretch she'd become. She's testing him.
Yeah.
Because if the person who's supposed to love her most can hate her, then she's allowed to hate herself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking a slight shift, and we'll get into it more, but because her mom made her to be what she is, I'm not saying that Nesta does agree that she's better than Cassian. I think she was raised to believe that she is better than Cassian, and she is therefore having to go against what she was raised to be. So, just moments where she spreads her cape out like a gown, how much of that is her innately just using that against him? Not that she believes in that, but it's just so ingrained in her.
Right.
I think one of the things I love most about Nesta is something a lot of people might not understand. Quote, get up, a small voice whispered in her head, her bones. Don't humiliate him like this. Don't give those assholes the satisfaction of seeing him made a fool. But her body refused to move. She'd drawn a line, and to yield to him, to anyone, something like disgust filled his face. Disappointment, anger. Good. Even as something crumpled inside her, she couldn't stop the relief. Now, the spite is something that she's going to have to work through. And it's not just accepting trauma, but this is a character trait. Like spite, yeah, it might come from trauma, but like sometimes it's just like who someone really is, and you have to actively work over it and work against it. And she's unwilling to move when she wants to. It is an actual block inside her. And I feel like people don't know how to give, I don't want to say grace, because if I met someone that was this spiteful, like, out, goodbye. But because I have known people and I have cared for people who have been very spiteful, I can have at least a little bit of a understanding. I'm not going to say full empathy, but understanding that like it is almost like a physical block that they cannot overcome.
Yeah. I mean, if we think about it, this is a learned behavior that Nesta learned probably at the age of 12 after her mother died and her family was kicked out of their home and life sucked. And she only knows how to interact with the people she loves through spite. And that's a really, really tragic state of being. But you're right. It's also one that only she can get herself out of.
Yeah.
And not everybody's tolerant of that. And if nobody's tolerant of it, including Cassian, who is arguably the most kind person in the inner circle, who's most likely to see the good in you, if even he cannot help her or see the good in her, then she's going to continue to perpetuate that hatred and that spite and believe herself incapable of being saved.
Yeah, I just think people don't know how to handle well, just get up. Just do it. You know what I mean? Like the reader can't comprehend well, just reach out your hand. Like it won't hurt you, you know?
Right. Sometimes it's a fundamental
Part.
Yeah.
All right, take a sip before we go into chapter 6. All right, so now we are in chapter 6, and Nesta watches Cassian go through his practice. She continues to reflect on past trauma. Go, he had begged her as he lay dying. I can't, she'd wept. I can't. She didn't know where that person she'd been in that moment had gone. Couldn't find her way back to her. It's interesting because Cassie in the chapter before was reflecting on that moment, and Nesta is reflecting on this moment. And they're both sad about it, right? Like Nesta just can't be back to that person. And we're going to be getting this message again and again and again. And that means Amy and I are going to be repeating ourselves again and again and again. It's not our fault. Okay, this is how it was written. And this is SJM being like, this is her story. This is her battle. This is her arc. SJM wants it loud and clear that this book will not be about anything other than their emotional arc. I think SJM knows how unlikable Nesta is. And so all these little moments are trying to reel the reader back in of saying she's gone through it.
Yeah.
She's bad times.
And here's the thing about depression that I think SJM has captured well is the fact that your brain moves in a circular pattern through your thoughts and it creates a loop. And the more you think it, the deeper those loops get in your brain. And they become harder and harder and harder to break the more you think them. And that's what Nesta is experiencing right now, is she's going through these circular loops in her memory, in her thought processes, that the more she thinks them, the deeper she buries herself, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, I just say I have a tool. If anyone's listening, they're like, yeah, I feel that way too. One of the things that I've learned through therapy, especially with bipolar, nighttime is a whole bad time for me. If I start to loop in my thoughts, I look at the time. And if it's after 9, I have to be we'll recircle this tomorrow. We'll come back to this. I have to stop the looping and be okay, after 9, thoughts don't count.
Yeah. Which doesn't mean just keep doing them. It means stop doing them.
Stop. I always tell myself, if it's worth the spiral, I'll spiral in the morning too. But if I drag my head out of this and you have to train yourself and it's by the morning, I'm not spiraling. And if I come back to those thoughts and I'm oh, well, actually, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It's just nighttime. Just forgive yourself. That helped me. So if anyone's listening and that helps them, just look at the time and say nighttime spirals don't count. Save it for morning.
I love that. What I really appreciate about the quote that Jack read is Nesta is admitting she's lost her identity. She, quote, didn't know where the person she'd been in that moment had gone, couldn't find her way back to her. The Nesta, therefore, we may have started to like in Wings and Ruin, who may have made an effort, doesn't exist anymore. And why is that? I think so much of her identity from the age of 12 to 24, 12 years, was purely driven by hating and spiting her father. And even though she still hates her father, the woman who was able to justify it, right, because he had never done anything for her, that's gone.
Yeah.
Because he has now done something for her. He has sacrificed his life, right? And so she can still hate him and spite him, but the justification is gone. And so the woman who justified her hatred is gone.
Yeah. Speaking of women and hatred, let's talk about Mor.
Oh my God.
I was I've always disliked Mor. I feel there was one season where there was a couple of moments where I'm maybe I do like Mor. And now I'm back to fuck this bitch. Never been a huge Mor fan. And she continues to not win me over. So when you're in Cassian's point of view, she's this beautiful survivor who embraces sunshine, and she is the embodiment of sunshine. But in Nesta's point of view, quote, Morrigan's voice drew Nesta's gaze from the mountains and the warrior. First, I like that she calls her Morrigan and not Moore.
Mhm.
You get right off the bat, they are not friends. This is where I feel like Moore starts to get into some mean girl shit. Quote, dark fire simmered in Morrigan's eyes. I knew plenty of people like you once. Her hand drifted to her abdomen. You never deserve the benefit of the doubt that good people like him give you. I want to point out that Moore is referencing the Night Court, that Moore is referencing people who brutalized her body, who stabbed her abdomen, who left her for dead. That is who Moore is referencing. Nesta has a drinking and gambling problem and depression problem. That is nowhere near anything that Moore is comparing people to. And yeah, Nesta's kind of a bitch, but like, she's not, I'm going to brutalize your body, bitch. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what the fuck? And I just really struggle with like, what has Nesta done that is just so bad? And I'm not saying that Nesta is innocent. Like, that's the other thing that I like about this book is that it's complicated, right? Like, Nesta is being treated way harshly, but she's also not innocent. So you're kind of like, well, I guess it's okay, but it's a lot of misplaced hatred. And I think it's just easier for people to the inner circle to put a lot of their own resentment and trauma on her.
I think that's exactly right, because you can't justify some of the things that Moore says or the way that they act purely on the basis that Nesta neglected Feyre for 10 years, who, by the way, Nesta was also a teenager / young woman, right, with trauma, who had been bred to be a rich merchant's daughter, had no skills for survival. You're really going to compare that person who is now traumatized and drinking and fucking her way around town to Faye in the hewn city that get joy out of torture and murder.
Yeah.
And that's ludicrous, which, you know, I'm not excusing it, but to your point, Jack, it is for Moore her own trauma response. For the rest of the inner circle, they don't get to be mad at the King of Hybern because the King of Hybern is dead. They don't get to be mad at the Cauldron. The Cauldron is an inanimate object, technically. So all of their anger about the war, the people who died that they couldn't save, all of that is misplaced onto Nesta.
Yeah.
Because Nesta currently has no redeeming qualities and maybe has never had redeeming qualities.
Yep. The only ones who get to be purely annoyed or have their own issues with her are Cassie and Feyre together, then Elaine, then maybe Amren, in that order.
Because they're the only ones who had a relationship with her.
Yeah. Everyone else, which is just Azriel, Rhys, and Moore, can suck it.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, Cassian wants nothing to do with Nesta after she's refused to train with him. Quote, when she'd emerged from her bath, Nesta found that a note had been slipped beneath her door. In tight, bold lettering, it told her to be in the library at 1. No threats, no promises to ship her off to the human lands, as if he didn't care whether she obeyed. Now, this is one of Nesta's chief hurts in life, and I think is happening over and over again to her. Everyone leaves her behind. Her mother died and effectively abandoned her. Her father abandoned her by not taking care of her. Her sisters have now abandoned her. Now even Cassian has abandoned her. He doesn't give a shit what she does. And that's gotta suck.
She thinks that Cassian's abandoned her, but not yet. He hasn't even started to abandon her just yet.
Right. It's gonna get a whole lot worse.
Yeah. So Nesta has gone through a lot of trauma, but to understand her trauma and how she reacts to it and how it'll make her healing journey make more sense, we got to go into more quotes. Quote, she couldn't stop it. Couldn't save Elaine sobbing on the floor. Couldn't save herself. No one was coming to rescue her. And this is part of the core of her trauma, is the fact that she wasn't able to save Elaine or herself. She wasn't able to save her family from poverty. She wasn't able to save her mother because she tried to like bully her dad to go get medicine and he didn't do it. She could help them from starvation. She couldn't save Elaine from turning into Fae. Like, she's just done nothing to be able to help anyone in her life. Part of it has been a choice. Part of it has not been her choice.
Right. And she perpetuated it even after she had power. She wasn't able to save anybody during the war.
Yep.
And by comparison to her younger sister, Feyre, she is a failure.
Yeah.
And that's how she sees herself. That's how other people see her. Now, this is the third round of memories for Nesta today. And this is where her control starts to crack. Her treatment of her own thoughts becomes violent. Look at the descriptions that are used when she tries to stop herself from thinking. It's like unwanted appendages that she's trying to get rid of. Quote, Nesta wrenched her thoughts back to the present, blasting back the memory. Sounds like a lot like the use of her powers. And this all speaks to her underlying problem, which we're going to continue to get into.
Yep. All right. I am going to highlight another quote that people might find uncomfortable with Nesta as a character. Quote, I am worthless and I am nothing. I hate everything that I am and I am so tired. I am tired of wanting to be anywhere but in my own head. Again, I think that this is the type of thought process that makes people very uncomfortable. And I think sometimes people don't understand or can't relate to it. And I think sometimes people relate to it too much and it makes them uncomfortable. And it's the kind of writing that the people who get it, and it's going to hurt them. And if you're like Amy and I, we're like, yes, hurt, love it, feel the pain. And other people might not have that much sympathy for her. And SJM has said that she was in a very dark place when she wrote this, and she put a lot of herself into Silver Flames. And I feel bad because I know there are so many people who felt this pain or other. I know Amy and I have felt variations of this pain, and it's hard to see. It's hard to read. And it's even harder to read from someone who is kind of unlikable in general, who's not the most likable character. If we were getting this from Elaine's point of view, I think a lot more people would be a lot more sympathetic for Elaine. But because people haven't liked Nesta since book 1, and then you get this, I think it's almost working against her for the reader to like her.
Yeah, I agree. Because again, this isn't a redeeming quality, right?
Yeah.
For Nesta to hate herself doesn't redeem her of her poor decisions and her poor treatment of others. The fact, though, that she's able to admit this in her mind, and she almost speaks these words to Clotho, says a lot. It says she's mentally worn herself down to the bone. The fact that she can think it and cannot deny the truth of it or restrain it is very telling. Right now, everyone in the inner circle is treating Nesta like she hates them and thinks they're worthless, that she has no regard for them, no regard for what they want for her, no regard for anyone but herself. And it's actually the opposite. And it's hard for readers to view, I think, this story from the lens of someone who hates themselves and think they're worthless. Because if you're viewing it from the lens of this person wants to hurt people because they hate them, that's completely different from this is a person who hates themselves and thinks that they should not exist.
Yeah.
Like those are two very, very different lenses.
There's no note. I just wanted to say that Nesta clarifies that she works for 5 hours instead of 4. That's all. I'm correcting myself before someone corrects me.
Now, Nesta is in the library shelving books, and we just get a little bit of a clue that the library will become a refuge for Nesta and why that's the case. Quote, the task was menial, but required enough concentration that time slipped away, her mind quieting to a blissful nothing. Nesta doesn't give the librarians a hard time because she immediately is able to see the benefit of the work. And that confirms what we have already begun to expect. Nesta is drawn to the things that will distract her from her self-hatred, and shelving books in the library does that for her. That's why she's not sitting on a rock saying, nope, I'm not going to shelve these books. She's like, oh, you know what? This is okay. I don't think that hard. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Which is why it's then hard for her when she comes back upstairs from the library after work. When she's ascending from the library, she's like, oh God, I'm hungry. I want to eat. And so she goes to eat food, but, quote, a plate of food appeared dumped unceremoniously onto the placemat. Even the house hated her. The food could have just appeared. Like, we don't know. She's an unreliable narrator. How does one dump a plate of food if it does not end in your lap? I just don't understand. How does one dump a plate of food without breaking the plate? Who knows? This is unreliable. It doesn't help. We know she's starving. We know she wants to eat. But because she has assessed that the house hates her, she then decides, you know what, then I shouldn't eat. Because if I eat, then I've lost control of myself, and hating myself reminds me I need to have control. So what does she want to do? She wants to drink wine so she can drown out the noise in her head. And that is so much more effective when you're hungry. Now, this is a note for a future topic that I'll bring up, but there are going to be times that the house withholds from Nesta and other times that the house gives Nesta. This is one of those times that the house withholds wine. Let's just remember that for later.
I get it. Sometimes, like, whenever I have wine and I have like a glass, when I reach the 2 glasses of wine and I don't drink often, I'm like, I should drink more. This is great. Why don't I drink more? I need to do this all the time.
Speaking of which, maybe I'll bring wine over today.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I have a bottle of red.
Oh, today is February 8th.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Take a sip.
We are in chapter 7, or as I like to call, kind of boring. I mean, do we have tons of notes on this chapter? Maybe. I don't know. You decided to talk. I just scrolled.
Yeah, I had notes, and I purposefully didn't write all my notes because I knew you hated this chapter so much.
I just find it to be a bit dull. So Moore drops off Cassian to go talk to Jorian, Lucian, and Vasa. And there's a lot of notes because, I wrote there aren't a lot of notes, but I take that all back. Amy has a lot of notes, but there's a lot of political plotting in this chapter. And when Moore drops off Cassian, we take in the view. Quote, even more than a year later, the ravages of war lay evident around the state. Trees fallen, barren patches of earth where greenery had not yet returned, a general bleak openness that made the gray-stoned house seem like an accidental survivor. In the moonlight, the starkness was even emptier. The remnants of trees silvered the shadows in the pockmarked earth deeper. When you have imagery that's like even more than a year later, and ravages of war lay evident, and fallen trees felled, and barren patches of earth where greenery had not yet returned, that's really meant to drill this into us that, in fact, time might have passed, but nothing has healed, including the people inside. In this case, nature equals lingering trauma. It's the nature lens, guys.
You know what it also reflects is Nesta, who was just wearing a gray dress in the library and got told to not wear her pretty gray dress anymore. We forgive nature for not rebounding very fast, guys.
Yeah.
And it's not like anybody has gone in to help plant more seeds and lay new greenery down, right? They just let it do its thing. I wonder why Nesta is the way she is if nobody's helped.
Yep. Especially when it's like, hey, we saw you were spiraling and decided to leave you alone.
Yeah.
Hey, we saw you were going through a really hard time, so I backed off. I'm like, I checked on you 3 times in a single day. You were having a bad day. I'm like,
yeah,
how are you feeling? Is everything okay? Are you okay? Like,
yeah.
I cannot imagine if whenever in the past I've had family members die, in this case, Nesta's dad, and not a single person reached out and been like, how are you? Are you okay? Or I'm going to be here while you weather this storm. You know who did get that? Farah. And that is fucked. All right. I also love the description of, quote, made the gray-stoned house seem like an accidental survivor because the outcasts that we see inside are all accidental survivors. It's kind of like a group of characters that SJM was like, here's a bunch of randos. You guys all get to be together.
That's why she gives them a weird name like Band of Exiles.
The band, I know, boy band. I wonder if we'll get more with them.
I bet we will.
There was an interaction with Vasa and Jorian, which I was like, oh, they're the ones who are more chemistry there than Lucian. Because people like to think Lucian and Vasa will get together. But there was like a moment here where Vasa and Jorian were kind of like elbowing each other. And then Lucian rolled his eyes like he's been having to play
chaperone.
Not chaperone, but like ref in between. That's what it was. Anyway, Cassian reflects on when he dropped off Nesta. Quote, "So as soon as he dumped Nesta at the house, he headed to a deserted cliff by the sea where the roar of the surf drowned the raging heat in his bones. This reminds me a lot of the descriptors around Nesta and the roaring in her head. They both got roaring. Hers is in her head, his is in his bone. Hers is her power, his is the sea to drown out his heartbeat. Also, more use of nature, literary lens. I think it also harkens back to when Cassian threw out the present that he wanted to give to Nesta into the river, and he keeps being brought back to water when he's rejected by her."
Interesting. What I also saw in this language is he, quote, dumped Nesta at the house, the same way the house, quote, dumped food in front of Nesta, but denied her wine. Now, the use of the word twice so closely together could be coincidental, but it's also that thing that you pay attention to when you're editing. So I choose to read it as intentional. And that is that there is blatant disregard / kind of peevishness about that word, dumping something or someone, that reflects disdain towards Nesta. And we're seeing that through Cassian's lens, right? So we're going to see how his care is being eroded away.
Yeah.
Cassian comes to learn that Eris, who's Lucian's older brother, is also paying a visit. When Cassian sees Eris, he sees, quote, Eris lounged in a golden chair, legs crossed, his pale face the portrait of courtly arrogance. Let's bring back the eco-criticism lens. This setup of Eris paints the picture of a perfect courtier. He's in a golden chair. It's almost like a throne. He is, as we know, great at playing the political games, and that's what Cassian knows too. Eris is what Cassian is not, and Cassian is being forced to masquerade in front of an expert. This instantly puts Cassian on the defensive. He feels out of his depth, and it strangles his self-confidence, which is already low because of Nesta. Quote, his head hurt. So many things to calculate. He'd done it on battlefields, but these mind games and webs of lies, why had Rhys asked him to do this? More eco-criticism. In complete opposite to Eris, the setting also tells us what Cassian thinks of Jurian. But who is Jurian now? What was he? From his spot on a ridiculous pink sofa by the far wall, Jurian said... ... We don't need to know what Jurian said. What's important here is that Cassian doesn't take Jurian seriously. Jurian's sitting on a ridiculous pink sofa. He doesn't take the trio of Lucian, Jurian, and Vasa seriously because they call themselves the Band of Exiles. And it just sounds ridiculous to him. Now we learn that Eris has lost a platoon of men, and his canines that are magical can't even find those men either. And this is a signal of power that we have to point out. Quote, canines blessed with magic of their own, gray and sleek like smoke. They could race fast as the wind, sniff out any prey. They were so highly prized that the Autumn Court forbade them from being given or sold beyond its borders, and so expensive that only its nobility owned them. And they were bred rarely enough that even one was extremely difficult to come by. Eris, Cassian knew, had 12. What this shows us is that, yes, Eris is a powerful fae, which signals that keeping him as an ally is important. But that comes under tension because Cassian is not comfy in this setting. Quote, Cassian flashed him a savage grin. We're allies, remember? Eris gave him an identical smile. Always. Smiles are being weaponized, which is actually normally a feminine sort of attack or response. And I think you said this last episode, Jack, being a courtier is a sort of feminine quality in Cassian's eyes, whereas he's used to being the masculine. And so we see that he's very uncomfortable playing this part. And he's trying, but he's not doing it very subtly.
Yeah.
Hang tight. We'll be back faster than a smoldering stare across a battlefield.
We are going to so many book conventions the next couple months, and do I need a whole new wardrobe?
I think so, because I'm not prepared for weather in New York.
Honestly, I am not about the fast fashion. I am all about Quince and how they prefer quality over quantity.
Quince makes high-quality wardrobe staples using premium fabrics. like 100% silk and organic cotton.
They even have a lightweight cotton cashmere sweater that's perfect for the changing seasons, especially in New York. And they have amazing spring colors, so I'll be able to be very versatile with all of the cute sweaters they have.
Quince clothing is consistently rated 4.5 to 5 stars by thousands of customers. Real people wearing these pieces every day actually love them. And honestly, they're better than some of my favorite expensive brands.
I personally love my boyfriend sweater that I got last year, and I still wear it all the time. And I'm sad that it's going to be warm, so I guess I'm going to have to find another sweater.
Stop waiting to build the wardrobe you actually want. You don't need a closet full of options. You just need pieces that work for you.
Right now, go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping and 365-day returns.
That's a full year to wear it and love it. And you will.
Quince is now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last.
Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk. Sleep is important to everyone, but I am bipolar, and sleep is one of the most important things that I can do to protect not just my mental health, but my physical health. I always strive to get around 8 hours of sleep a night. Honestly, I have to shoot from 8 to 10 hours a night. And it is so important for me to know that everything in my body is helping me get that balanced sleep that I really need.
For me, the big shift was realizing that sleep isn't just about hours. It's the foundation for everything: performance, mood, focus, recovery, even how you age.
The part that surprised me is that you can't fully understand your sleep without looking at your lab tests. If your sleep is off, your results will likely show it with elevated inflammation and shifts in glucose and cholesterol. And when sleep improves, that's going to show too.
That's what I appreciate about Function. It gives you real data so you know what's happening inside your body. Sleep isn't just a habit, it's biology. And if you want to look deeper to see whether you're improving it or troubleshooting how to improve it, you have to measure it.
I have my first appointment with Function to get my blood drawn for next week. What I did appreciate about it, though, is that they are making sure that it's coordinated around my period. They weren't just like, come here, give us blood. It was like, hey, let's make sure you get the best results possible.
Be like Jack and own your health. Start by understanding what's happening beneath the surface.
Function gives you access to 160 plus lab tests each year, including advanced markers for heart health, inflammation, stress, hormones, toxins, and more for $365 a year.
Learn more and join Function using our link. Visit www.functionhealth.com/booktalk or use gift code BOOKTALK25, that's BOOKTALK 25, for a $25 credit toward your membership.
So, because we're still in early chapters, SJM is casually having characters remember things from past books so that we, the reader, can remember things from past books. Because sometimes I'm like, this kind of feels a little out of place. And I'm like, oh, you're just trying to remind me of shit. So one of which is Cassian thinking about the man who assaulted Nesta. Quote, he'd often contemplated how he'd kill the man if Nesta gave him the go-ahead. Peeling his skin from his bones would be a good start. I am all for a revenge. Touch her and die kind of vibe. But again, I need to point out some hypocrisy here. The Fae, not just Cassian, like this is for all the Fae, and the species as a whole, I've got notes for them. Violence is acceptable. Debauchery is acceptable. Humanity is not. How much of us hate on Nesta because of her human heart is really her human weakness. So Farah got a great story because hers was about her human heart. Well, I believe Nesta is about human weakness. And it's not just human weakness. I think all of them have the same weakness. It's the same way that we talked about Farah's human heart. I mean, Reese was the one who called it her human heart. It was pointed out and we were like, don't you guys all have that same heart? And it's the same thing with the weakness, right? And I think that the story, it's just different, right? Compassion versus weakness. I love the little descriptors that SGM gives us to point out that Cassian and Nesta are similar. Quote, Cassian tried to think over the bellowing beast in his head that tightened every muscle of his body until only bloody violence would appease it. Both Nesta and Cassian continue to express this otherness, this being, this monster inside them. For Nesta, we know it's her magic. For Cassian, it's
who he is.
His broody manliness. But both of them have this monster that roars so loudly it takes over their head and mind and heart.
Because they are the same.
Yep.
Another moment that Cassian's thoughts mirror Nesta's, quote, Rhys had appointed him to play courtier, to put aside the blade and use his words. It was a joke. Cassian cannot do what Nesta does, which is weaponize words. And he thinks poorly of himself and feels ill-suited to the role the way that Nesta feels poorly about herself. Now, there's a lot of information brokering throughout the rest of the chapter, which is so courtier light. It plays its part, right, as courtiers. And what we see is some people giving information so that they can get information from others. In this process, though, Cassian reveals too much. So that by the end of the chapter, Eris tells Cassian, quote, stick to fighting battles, General. Leave the ruling to those capable of playing the game. This is effectively a nail in the coffin of Cassian's self-confidence when it comes to politics, because Eris confirms what Cassian suspected, which is he's blundered. He's not very good at playing politics. And why not kick a man while he's down?
I mean, it's also what's going to play into Cassian's insecurities and jealousy later when Eris shows an interest in Nesta. Because, he's the prince and courtier.
Right.
And we're just people who are about to take a sip.
Take a sip.
All right, so we are now in chapter 8, and Nesta makes her first attempt to go down the stairs, the 10,000 steps, and she's overwhelmed with emotions and memories, particularly of when her father died. Quote, I loved you from the first moment I held you in my arms. Please, she begged the king of Hybern, please. I think that this is a good moment to examine the power of the word please. From what I remember, Feyre had a very similar issue when it came to saying please, that it didn't really come to anything when she would plead for anything. And we can see that this is a memory for Nesta. Begging and asking and wanting help and saying please does nothing. It does not work out for her in the long run. At least that's her interpretation.
Right, which is a great callback to our Mist and Fury season, because that's the same with Feyre's relationship with the word that she had to overcome throughout the book. And where does this all stem from? It obviously stems from their childhood of trauma and being neglected and starving. And in Nesta's case, her interactions with the King of Hybern, which just reminds us, Feyre and Nesta are a lot alike. They have more than her eyes. They have more than their mother's eyes in common.
Yep. One of the more subtle journeys I feel like Nesta is going to go through in this book is accepting her Fae side. And in my opinion, her reconciling that she was never a good human. And I don't mean like morally good. I mean like she just was never meant to be human. Quote, Hi, Fae. If she couldn't endure this, the pointed ears she learned to like, the infrequent cycles, which Feyre had warned would be painful, had actually been a boon. Something Nesta was happy to worry about only twice a year. But what was the point of it, of any of it, if she couldn't conquer these stairs? The thing that Nesta inherently likes about her are the feminine aspects, right? The ears, the delicate ears, the fact that she doesn't have to have her period except for twice a year, which I find it to be interesting because Nesta is very embracing of feminine qualities when she is inherently so not soft. And I love the contrast that Nesta is and embodies. Like when you think feminine, I think Elaine, right? She's the more girlish one. She's soft. You can't even sneeze in her direction or she'll wither away. I also don't really like Elaine, in case you guys couldn't tell. But Nesta is just such a great contrast between soft and hardness.
Yes. Nesta's always been very feminine, right? She's always worn dresses and whatnot. She's always had the air of a bitter, strong woman. And it just reminds us you don't have to be soft to be feminine.
Yep.
But we associate softness with femininity.
At the gym, Amy and I were together and I spoke to one of my gym crushes there. And afterwards I turned to Amy. I'm like, yeah, I know my voice goes high pitch, a little higher, a little.
Oh, yeah, because I mocked you. Because I was like,
yes. Amy has to tell everyone that Amy was making fun of me in order for me. Was that necessary for the story?
No. I just wanted to call you out for
context.
You didn't recognize it on your own until I mocked you.
I want you to know I've recognized this about myself for a long time.
I'm going to take a sip. Now we switch over to Cassian's point of view and learn that After he reported to Rhys what Cassian learned from Eris, Rhys told Cassian to keep in communication with the Prince of the Autumn Court. Quote, Cassian had started to object, but Rhys had directed a pointed look at Azriel, and Cassian had caved. Az had too much on his plate already. Cassian could deal with that piece of shit Eris on his own. Cassian does everything he can to put the happiness of those he loves before his own. We know this. We've seen it time and time again with how he treats Rhys and Azriel, which is why the contrast is shocking. Quote, it had been worth it, seeing Nesta claw her way onto the landing, panting, hair curling with the sweat sliding down her face, completely worth his generally shit day. This is retribution in Cassian's eyes. Nesta made his day shit, made the rest of his day shit. She refused to train with him. She deserves to be miserable. And so, even though we know he's just had this moment of empathy for Azriel, and he has a typically very empathetic heart, that heart has hardened against Nesta. Now, we know why that is the case, but if it were anyone else, he wouldn't feel as much glee as he feels right now at the suffering.
So at this point, Nesta's crawled her way back up. Cassian's laughing at her. And at the same time, though, he does try to make her feel a little bit better by telling Nesta a story about when he, Rhys, and Azriel were punished and were sent to go walk the stairs. Quote, I got so dizzy on the hike down that I puked on Az. Oh, I cut off my thing. And then I think I cut it off because I didn't want people grossed out. And then Az puked on Rhys, and then Rhys puked, and then they're all puking on each other, and it was so hot. And they get upstairs, and they're just like, oh my God, this is horrible. But this is Cassian humanizing himself, for a lack of a better word, to Nesta and to relate to her and to make himself less threatening. Like, this is also another way of him reaching out. And every time he does these little tiny things, it is him reaching out, trying to give a bridge of some kind. What we've established is that Nesta's mom is trying, or was trying, to make Nesta into a weapon. Nesta is meant to use her looks and words to cut. And we see this the next day when they all go to breakfast and Nesta's all stiff and sore. And Cassian's like, why can't you stand up? You should stand up, Nesta. And then she was like, I don't want to train with you anymore. And Cassian goes, okay, quote, Cassian drummed his fingers on the table. I think you'll find that Az is even less forgiving than I am. With that pretty face, she crooned, I have a hard time believing that. So at this point, Nesta has learned that not only can she wield her own looks as a weapon, but she can use other people's looks as a weapon too. She is kind of throwing Azriel's looks into Cassian's face, being like, well, I think he's attractive. And she's also using withholding as another form of a weapon. She's not only withholding sex, but now attraction to him and the desire to even work out with him.
I should have put my point before yours because chronologically they take place before each other, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to say it here. When Cassian and Az first come to the dining room to have breakfast, quote, Cassian slid into the chair opposite hers, his food instantly appearing before him, and said with grating cheer, morning, Nesta. She threw him an equally saccharine smile. Good morning, Cassian. I wanted to call out this moment because it mirrors the interaction Cassian and Eris had the day before, using smiles and facades to get on each other's nerves, to one another, like Jack just described. And it's also a reminder to us, Cassian's not on Nesta's side right now.
Yeah, I love their little digs and insults at each other. And Nesta tries to insult Cassian. Like, they're talking about something else, but she tells him it doesn't count if he, quote, uses his hands to do most of the work. AKA, she's saying like, oh, you're saying that your hands don't count. She makes a masturbation joke in the fact that he's not getting laid. And Cassian responds, quote, Cassian's voice dropped an octave. Is that what those smutty books teach you? That it's only at night? I actually don't find this to be a very good comeback, but that's just me. I feel like we could have done better. But I get what we're doing here. It is funny because right now, sex is being used as a weapon from Cassian.
So I view this moment, I agree, it's not funny, but it is like what he did to Devlin. Instead of blundering, because of the way that Nesta's acting, he leans into it. He does what she does not expect, which is continue to talk about sex. And she is in theory, brought up as a lady, so talking about sex would be, in theory, uncomfortable.
I just feel like, so it was more about the fact that he uses his hand to do most of the work. And she's like, I bet you say that about yourself. She was like, is that what you say when you jerk off at night? She doesn't say that,
Yeah.
right? But I just feel like if I was him, I would have gone into like hands and mouth, baby. But then that's like, he doesn't suck himself off. But like, just, I feel like there's something. There could have been something.
Yeah. I guess he's also passive aggressively calling her ignorant.
Yeah, which she is. Like, she's still kind of
Yeah.
innocent.
Yeah. Breakfast is now over, and Cassian has to go outside to calm himself down because he's turned on. Quote, Cassian gritted his teeth and breathed in the crisp morning air, willed it to settle him, made him focus on the morning wind's sweet song. The wind around Valaris had always been lovely, gentle, not like the vicious, unforgiving mistress that ruled the peaks of Illyria. Personification of the wind in Valaris is lovely and gentle. The wind in Illyria is an unforgiving mistress. What does that tell us? Well, the vicious, unforgiving mistress of Illyria sounds like Nesta to me. I mean, if you can't tell, he is into the fight. He is into the fire. He's able to calm himself because the wind in Valaris is calm, which means that's not what he's into. He's into the vicious, unforgiving mistress, Nesta.
Mm-hmm. He's still in pain, though. And that what hurts the most is that our sweet baby angel boy is so self-conscious when it comes to his own intelligence, and he doesn't want Nesta to know this particular insecurity. Quote, one more verbal weapon to wield against him, since she'd likely see right through him and realize he knew all of this political scheming and planning was far beyond his abilities. Claiming ignorance, which he always does, like, I'm a brute, born and raised, it's his security blanket. Nesta is educated. I know her family went into poverty, but there's a whole point about the reason why Feyre can't read versus why Nesta can. Time was spent on Nesta. She reads, she dances. She was raised to be a lady. And Cassian's biggest insecurity is the fact that he sees himself as stupid.
Mm-hmm. Now, after another day of unsuccessful training attempts, Cassian drops off Nesta at Rhys's mother's cabin at Windhaven. And, quote, this house was the first true home he'd ever had. He knew every scratch and splinter, every dent and bird mark, all of it preserved with magic. What I love about this quote is that it reveals and reminds us that Cassian remembers a place he loves, not only for its good, but for its blemish. He remembers those blemishes, those flaws with fondness, which tells us he's capable of loving broken and imperfect things. And he could love Nesta for her imperfectness and her brokenness, but she won't let him. This is when, for the first time, Cassian notices Nesta's peculiar reaction to fire and how she retreats into herself mentally and reacts negatively to the crackling and popping noises. Finally, someone is paying attention, and Cassian realizes that maybe he's looking at Nesta through the wrong lens. Maybe she's not retreating into her thoughts because she's an introvert or is bitter. Quote, he glanced between her and the fire. Where had she gone for those few moments? What horror had she been reliving? Her face had blanched, and shadows dimmed her blue-gray eyes. He knew that expression, had seen it and felt it so many times he'd lost track. Finally, someone sees that maybe Nesta is suffering.
Yep. And they see we take a sip. We are now in chapter 9, and Nesta goes wandering around the Illyrian village, and this is where we first meet Emery. Quote, the floors were fresh pine, all polished and gleaming, a matching counter accompanying the back, an open door beyond it revealing a rear room, clothes for both males and females occupied. It's welcoming, it's nature, but it's different than the nature in Feyre's house. Feyre's house was also very welcoming, and it was also very nature forward, but it's different when it comes to Emery. Nesta and Emery are able to connect on, honestly, what I believe the most beautiful part of womanhood, and that is the stupidity of men. Quote, part of her smiling at the way the female had said proud fools, as if she shared Nesta's instinct to be unimpressed by the males in the camp. They are both determined to be not impressed by men, and I feel that. If you're a man and you're here to like impress me, I did not realize how much I shut that down until this year. I'm like, no, you will not impress me with this.
while we were at the gym today, you were doing an exercise and I was hanging back watching you and some guys passed and someone's like, yeah, we're going to go do Cobra something, something or other. And I was just like, you had to say it that loud as you're passing two women? Seriously? No one gives a shit.
No
It's not
one gives a
impressive.
shit. That's like, I mean, sometimes depending on the workout, if a guy is next to me and he'll like look at my weight and go like one above mine, then I'll go one above theirs, bitch. Like, I don't watch me. Yeah, it's so funny. I did not know that until like this past year in certain new relations that I have developed where I was like, oh, wow, if that doesn't impress me much, that I really listen to Shania Twain.
Man, I feel like a woman.
No, that don't impress me much.
Oh, yeah.
The other song. I mean, I do feel like a woman, but so you got the moves, honey.
Yeah.
Okay. Nesta, though, starts to enter this self-fulfilling prophecy territory. Quote, she wanted to see if the female would pry, to see if she really did not know her, if she would judge her for being a miserable waste of life. Nesta is so proud and yet has so much self-hatred. It is not a great combination to have pride and to hate yourself. Like, then you have pride for hating yourself. And in my opinion, I think she's a fantastic anti-hero. And one of the quintessential archetypes of anti-hero is the lack of traditional heroic qualities, which we'll get into later. But like idealism, courage, and lack of morality. So she just has such unfortunate combinations. You know there's a Scorpio in there somewhere, you know?
I bet it's her moon.
Yeah. There's like a handful of signs that I'm not all that familiar with, but I feel like Scorpio or some Sagittarius. Amy and I are both Scorpio rising, so it's fine. We could say this.
Now, when Emery comes out, Nesta notices the scars on Emery's wings. And she knows from the other fae she's encountered who have scars, like Lucian and Azrael, that they are, quote, from traumas so terrible Nesta had never dared ask for details, for this female to bear them as well. So Nesta recognizes physical scars and feels empathy for that. She knows that that means this person has dealt with extreme trauma, which I suspect she views differently than her own trauma that she's experienced.
Yeah. So when Emery reveals a horrible part of her trauma and the horrible traditions within the Illyrians, quote, my wings were clipped, the female said. My father was a traditional male. He believed females should serve their families and be confined to their homes. I disagreed. He won in the end. There's a lot of examples in their world, in our world, of gender bodily control. And bodily alterations are used to enforce gender roles, control of movement, and independence, all with when it's framed as quote unquote tradition. So before I go into it, extra trigger warnings here. Female genital mutilation is practiced in some regions across Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia. And it's typically framed as like a way of preserving purity. It's controlling sexuality. It's enforcing gender norms. If you guys don't know what it is,
it's horrific.
It's really horrific. They take I don't even want to say it. We should say it. I don't want people Googling it.
No, don't Google it. But what it's doing, essentially, in reality, it is taking away parts of the female anatomy that allow the woman to experience pleasure.
Like the clitoris.
Yes.
I don't want someone Googling this if they don't want to. That's,
Nope.
And it's often performed by family/community members rather than external enemies. Also, surprising amount in the United States, too. Just saying. It's rough. Yeah. Another example is foot binding, practice historically in China for centuries, physically altering girls' feet to make walking difficult. And they're like, no, it's to symbolize beauty and status. That's why, rather than actually making it more difficult for them to run away. And it reinforces domestic confinement.
Yeah. They physically bound the feet to be as small as possible. And the smaller they were, the more beautiful they were. The more they couldn't do anything, which means they were subject to whatever was the man's whim.
Did they teach that a lot at all when you lived in China?
Yeah.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't shy away from it. That's good.
Well, I went to an international school, so.
Yeah. It's like, guess what? The note where I have there is that SJM is using what we see in this world in her fantasy world. I will say, and I said this in past seasons, and I will say this again, it is unfortunate that one of the more diverse communities that we have in SJM's world, where the Illyrians are described as being darker, and unfortunately they are depicted as being barbaric and hating women and backwards and mutilating women. And I just want to say that we recognize it, we see it, not a fan. Would give notes back to her.
Yeah. Didn't have to be
like the one group of
darker skinned people. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Nesta is about to leave the shop, but we get this moment. Quote, Nesta turned towards the door and waiting cold, unsure what to do with the naked approval of what so many others had regarded either with awe or fear or doubt. Thank you for your help. There's something so poetic about her getting and giving naked approval when at a clothing shop, which is kind of great. I love the use of language there. And while she's looking for clothes to cover herself up, because these clothes have made her feel more exposed, not just physically, but now emotionally, because it brought her here.
And temperature-wise.
Then Nesta is having a big ol' busy day, and she gets to meet Gwen. And we love this counter. We all do, love the counter between this interaction and her interaction with Emery. With Emery, she was kind of like, yeah, girl, let's both hate these guys. And with Gwen, that's not so much. So they're kind of not getting along. And at one point, Nesta was like, oh, right, I forgot. She's been horribly abused. And then we have, quote, Gwen marked the change. I don't need your pity. The words were sharp, as clear as her teal eyes. It wasn't pity. And this is where we see some similarities, that Gwen and Nesta are very similar. I love Gwen, period. That's all. She's going to get together with Azriel. You will not stop me on this. It will not be brought down. Anyway, you damn well believe the more we get Gwen, the more I'm going to be analyzing any clues and hints to Azriel.
Here's the thing, though. I think Gwen deserves better than Azriel.
I absolutely agree with this.
I think Azriel's actually, I love Daddy Azzy. I think he's a shit person.
I agree.
I think Gwen deserves better.
I just dislike Elaine so much that I don't want her to have Azriel.
But they're two shit beings that can be shitty together.
I know. I can't explain this. Maybe I'll be cured of this feeling by the end of this. Or deeper in, we shall very much see. But what I do love is that Nesta gets to meet two women in this day who also have trauma and should also teach her that, yes, other women have gone through shit too. And I don't think that Nesta has forgotten that other women have gone through things, if arguably things much worse than her. What I do believe is important when we meet survivors is that it's a reminder, regardless of their trauma versus your trauma, anyone who's gone through something has to mourn, has to process it, and can also become survivors as well.
I also like these meetings for different reasons than Jack. As Jack alluded, Nesta thinks to herself when she meets Gwen that she, quote, knew well how invisible wounds could be, how they could scar as deeply and badly as any physical breaking. Like Cassian and Nesta are two sides of the same coin, I feel like Gwen and Emery are two sides of the same coin. There's a reason why she meets them narratively in the same day. Emery, she meets while she should be training out in Windhaven, who is a manifestation of physical trauma, versus Gwen, who's down below in the library where she works, who is the manifestation of mental emotional trauma. Both of them are going to be vehicles that help draw out Nesta's ability to empathize and care for others. And in the process, she will learn empathy and care for herself.
Side random note, when Gwen says, I quote, I don't need to be coddled, only spoken to like a person, it answers my question, because as someone who's writing their own fantasy novel, I keep avoiding them saying person or people. And I'm going to continue to avoid it, because did that ruin anything for anyone, guys? Can you let me know? Can you write in the Spotify comments? Or if you're listening on Apple, send us a comment. But like when you see person or people, does that take you out of the fantasy? That's all.
Right. Do person and people only allude to humans, or do they also allude to fae?
Yeah.
Could be facin and fable.
I've been workshopping it. This ad break is shorter than Manon's patience.
I'm preparing to get married, which means I'm thinking a lot about what it means to merge finances. And I think I'm going with Chime.
Chime isn't just another banking app. They unlock smarter banking for everyday people with products like MyPay, giving you access to up to $500 of your paycheck anytime and getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Some of these old banks still don't do this.
We're at Romantasy BookCon, and I don't get paid for another 2 days. I could really use Chime right now.
I don't get paid for another 2 days too. I'm really sad it's not stopping me from buying everything, but it is also making me want to switch to Chime.
Because they don't have overdraft fees, minimum balance fees, or monthly fees.
You can also earn up to 3% APY on savings. That's 7 times higher than a traditional bank.
It's also rated 5 stars by USA Today for customer service because they have real humans 24/7.
And with the Chime card, it's the new way to build credit history with your own money and get rewarded every single day.
There's no annual fees, no interest, and no strings attached. Who can resist that?
Chime is not just smarter banking, it's the most rewarding way to bank. Join the millions who are already banking fee-free today.
It just takes a few minutes to sign up. Head to chime.com/booktalk. That's chime.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services, a secured Chime Visa credit card, and MyPay line of credit provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. MyPay eligibility requirements apply, and credit limit ranges $20 to $500. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. See chime.com/fees info. Advertised annual percentage yield with Chime Plus status only. Otherwise, 1.00% APY applies. No min balance required. Chime card on-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. See chime.com for details and applicable terms.
Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use. Now that the day is over, Nesta heads to the private library in the House of Wind and accepts, you know what? I'm fucking hungry. I'm going to eat. However, the house does not feed Nesta until Nesta says, please. Quote, Nesta was reaching for her spoon when a plate of fresh, crusty bread appeared, as if the house were a fussing mother hen. Thank you, she said into the quiet and dug in. Now, the use of please with a positive outcome is rare for Nesta. And because it had a positive outcome, I believe it's going to reinforce her willingness to talk to and negotiate with the house. Because, it responds well to please and thank you. This is where I'm going to argue that Nesta is actually learning to talk to and negotiate with herself. The house is a vehicle for her to accept herself.
Yep.
And after a day of meeting women she likes, in whom she sees herself, who draw her out of herself, the house is pleasant to her, which is important because when Nesta hates herself the most, when she talks down to herself the most, when she treats Cassian the worst, the house is unkind to her.
Yeah.
And so how much is the house acting based on Nesta's subconscious view of herself?
Makes sense. She's the one who turned the house into the house with her own magic. I love that.
Take a sip.
Okay. So now we're in chapter 10 and Nesta is just eating her own dinner and she gets to have chocolate cake, but then Cassian comes in and starts eating her chocolate cake. Quote, she bared her teeth, but Cassian only set the fork down with grating precision and walked out, leaving her half-eaten cake, her half-orgasmed, not quite coming body. Again, there's a level of like mutual masturbation. He's eating her cake. There's tension there. And until they start fucking, sex will be compared to everything here. And in this case, food.
He's edging her is what we're saying.
Kind of. I don't know. Like there's a difference between edging and then like just flat out leaving her unsatisfied.
Yeah, it's fair.
I enjoy how SJM uses the environment and setting of characters. Remember we talked about that before with Eco-criticism. Eco-criticism, thank you. And this is another example of that. Quote, long minutes passed, and then the bed heated, not from her own naked body, but some manner of spell. The very air warmed too, as if someone had blown a great breath into the space. Okay, so this is not the eco-criticism I wanted, but this is another, because later on there is eco-criticism involved. But this is a great moment of emotionally stripped. Like she is naked and she has been emotionally laid bare for the day, and the house is taking care of her, like Amy said, for being emotionally vulnerable. Every time Nesta remembers her father, we get a different variation and a different moment and a different highlight and different aspect of it. Quote, her father with his soft brown eyes, the love of her still shining in them as their light faded. So I get that like the idea is as the light faded as in his life faded from his eyes, but I feel like you can also interpret that as Nesta internalizing that his love for her faded over time.
Great point. I also think we're supposed to kind of focus on this idea that he had soft brown eyes. They were probably softened with his love for her.
Yeah.
But soft can also be easy to break.
Yep.
And because Nesta and her father are mirrors of one another, we've talked about that before, just like her father's soft neck was broken, anything soft left in Nesta was broken too in that moment.
Yeah. Everything about this is very poetic. Even Nesta's crash out is poetic. SJM said, you want drama? I'm going to give you the drama. So Nesta, after her nightmare, goes down the stairs again. And this is where the echo criticism is. Quote, the cauldron dragging her into itself, into the pit of creation, taking and taking from her, merciless despite her screaming, around and down, exactly as she'd been pulled into the cauldron, crushed beneath its terrible power. So this is Nesta walking down the spiraling staircase, and she's having these spiraling thoughts of the cauldron crashing out, pulling her in, and she's being brought down into the stairs. And you can see that this is happening both literally and figuratively. So Nesta falls down the stairs, and it's a bad fall. And she thinks about how amazing it was that she survived, and the fact that she probably wouldn't have survived if she was human. Quote, being human, being weak in this world of monsters was a death sentence. Her high fae body was her best chance at survival. We're starting to change the mindset. I mean, we're not even changing the mindset. This is like the mindset recognizing to some fundamental degree that you have to survive, and this body is what will get you to survive. But it's also resentment. She was in her fae body when her dad died. She wasn't strong enough to do anything for him. So it's kind of a combination of like, this is the body you need to survive, even though you had that body, you had those tools, and you didn't train them and you didn't weaponize them to use it when you needed it most. Yeah, that's all.
Cassian tries to call Nesta out for falling because she's bruised, and she tries to deny it, but can't help recollecting what's happened and how she may have potentially used her magic during her fall. Quote, she didn't let herself name what had come from within her, didn't let herself acknowledge it. By dawn, it had been strangled into submission. Just a reminder, she masters her magic by strangling it, by being violent to it, by ignoring it, just like her feelings, just like her hunger.
I mean, it's how she got the magic in the first place, was clawing at it, getting it by the teeth.
Cassian is trying to get Nesta to train with him again at Windhaven, and for the third time, he is inviting her to the proverbial mat. The nearby Illyrians are watching because Cassian has been training by himself and they're admiring him, but, quote, their stares turned amused, mocking him. Once last year, she might have gone up to those males and ripped them apart, might have let a bit of that terrible power within her show, so they truly believe she was a witch and would curse them and 1,000 generations of their offspring if they insulted Cassian again. It makes me sad because, as we know and as she knows, the woman who would have protected Cassian is gone. She is the same woman who would have submitted to Cassian when he says please. Yep. But that woman's gone. And so when Cassian says please, she's not going to do anything.
Yeah. We're getting another moment of Nesta struggling to reach out to Cassian or accept his hand. Like, it's just every single time it's so painful. Quote, she told herself to get up, to take that outstretched hand, but she couldn't bring her body to rise. And I know we're repeating the same thing because I said this before. We had this conversation at the beginning of this episode saying we're repeating the same things. But SJM is just trying to make it so clear that Nesta wants to reach out. She wants to put her hand out there. And if SJM is spending the time to drill it into us, then we as a reader, Amy and I always say, what is it that the author's trying to achieve? If the author's trying to drill something into you, then you can tell they're trying to achieve something.
Great point. Now, a few chapters ago, I talked about how Cassian views the wind in the Illyrian mountains as a cruel mistress. And I suggested that Nesta was like that wind. Here, from Nesta's point of view, Nesta is thinking of Cassian as those very same Illyrian mountains. Quote, he was made from these mountains, crafted from wind and stone. He was so beautiful, not in the way that Azriel and Rhys were beautiful, but in an uncut way, savage and unrelenting. This is a fun little moment in my mind because A, she's admitting that she also finds him beautiful, where she had just wielded Azriel's looks against him to make him feel jealous.
Yep.
But she's also attracted to the strength of him and the mountains that he basically symbolizes.
Yeah.
She's attracted to that monster in him, quite frankly, just the way he's attracted to the monster in her. If she is the wind, he is the mountains beneath her.
They're both little problematic fools, and I love them for it.
I do too.
Nesta reflects on meeting Cassian for the first time, and I love it because it speaks about her emotional needs and how it's not healthy. Quote, all she wanted for so many months was to touch him, smell him, taste him, get close to that strength and throw everything she was against it because she knew he'd never break, never falter, never balk. This is Nesta's sense of security. It's the fact that Cassian does not balk at her. Everyone else has shied away from her. Feyre, her dad, they didn't tolerate her. They kept her at a distance. And Elaine can tolerate her, sort of, because right now she's bounced too. So everyone leaves except for Cassian. Another thing about Nesta's psyche is how Cassian is associated with punishment. Quote, she deserved his disappointment, deserved his resentment and disgust, even if it carved something vital from her. For someone who wants to punish herself, disappointing Cassian is going to be the best way of punishing herself. It's just unfortunate that it's going to be punishing him too.
Yeah, poor Cassian. We move on to chapter 11, and it is the end of the day. Nesta just wants to hide away in the private library, read her book, eat some food. But the house won't let her. I wonder why. First of all, she doesn't say please. She demands entry. The house denies her. If she said please, maybe the house would have considered it. However, like I said earlier, I personally think that this is Nesta's conscience working against her. This act of defiance from the house is retribution for how Nesta treated Cassian, and it is her own anger at herself manifesting through the actions of the house.
So at this point, Nesta hears Cassian and Azriel talk, and she hears about Vasa, how Vasa's like giving information to them. And Nesta's relationship with Vasa is complicated, but in my head, very understandable. Quote, since the young woman had tried to speak to her about how wonderful Nesta's father had been, how he had been a true father to her, helped her and won her this temporary freedom, her blood boiling to think that her father had found his courage for someone other than her and her sisters, that he'd been the father she had needed, but for someone else. Holy shit, when I read that, I was like, okay, hello, this stings, this is good. But of course, she would feel resentment for Vasa. Of course, she would feel all of these feelings. And most importantly, of course, she would still be angry at her dad. Like, this isn't just, oh no, he died at the end. This is, oh no, he died and stepped up and it was never for me.
Yeah. He gave the best of himself to someone who wasn't me.
Yeah. And she doesn't only have to mourn her father. She has to mourn everything that he could have been and was at the end, but never for her. Nesta then insults Rhys, and it pisses off Cassian and Azriel. Quote, don't you fucking talk about Rhys with that tone, Cassian snarled. Rhys is an asshole, Nesta snapped. He's an arrogant, preening asshole. Azriel sat back in his seat, eyes simmering with anger, but said nothing. Let's look at Nesta's relationship with Rhys and other people's relationship with Rhys, and if Nesta owes him anything. Because Rhys has earned everyone's respect, and he has given her nothing. And both of them, Nesta and Rhys, are people who don't respect others until they earn the respect. But Rhys has never tried to earn anyone's respect. He's just always gotten it. The only person that he tried to get respect from was Feyre. And at first it was her trust, and then respect, and then her friendship, and then her love. But for Rhys, that's not a normal thing. Like, he is the High Lord. He does not need to humble himself for anyone. And when you think about it, he doesn't humble himself for anyone. So of course he's not going to humble himself for Nesta, and Nesta's not going to humble herself for him. My God. All right. No notes on this one. It's just an intense line that we have to read. Or Amy has notes. That's good. Quote, I hate him, she seethed. Good. He hates you too, Cassian shot back. Everyone fucking hates you. Is that what you want? Because congratulations, it happened.
So Cassian's giving Nesta a taste of her own medicine. Words are weapons here. Remember, though, he wasn't able to use his words as weapons when he had to play courtier. It's here and now when he's so riled up by Nesta that he's using it against her. And this is how his frustration is manifesting. In some ways, by saying all this, he's explaining to her why he's against her, not with her. Because at the end of the day, and we'll see this when Feyre comes into the picture later, he can't stand what's happening. And he feels powerless against it. And so therefore, like Nesta, why not cause pain?
Yep.
Because that's how frustrated he's gotten at this point.
Yep.
Which isn't cool.
No, it's not. What's also not cool is that a chapter ago, remember, like not that long ago, guys, can probably hit repeat a little bit. It was how one of the reasons why Nesta liked Cassian is his ability to handle her. And now the fact that he's not willing to handle her anymore is going to be a very big blow. Quote, and I suppose now you'll tell me that you're the only person who doesn't hate me, and I'm supposed to feel something like gratitude and agree to train with you. Now I tell you I'm done. The words rumbled between them. Nesta blinked, the only sign of surprise she'd allow. This, of course, will be the biggest blow to her, that the thing that she was so attracted to Cassian was his ability to withstand her, and she has now gone too hard.
And he's admitting, nope, I will abandon you just like everybody else has. And she never thought that possible.
Yep.
So Nesta obviously is going into a spiral. Her mind is roaring, and she can't really do anything about it because sex is not available to her and wine is not available to her. So what does she do to cope? She doesn't go to the private library to read smutty books. She goes to the library beneath the house. Quote, She returned to the library. The lights blazed as brightly as they had during the day, and a few lingering priestesses wandered the levels. She found her cart filled again with books needing to be shelved. No one spoke to her, and she spoke to no one as she began to work with only the roaring silence in her head for company. Nesta cannot drink herself into oblivion. She cannot have sex until she blisses out, so she has to resort to the destruction of work. This was all foreshadowed that first afternoon she was working in the library, and also sets it up for why she will fall into enjoying her training when she eventually gets there. Now, I'm going to argue Cassian's not at his best right now. Nesta has brought out a part of him we haven't seen as readers. And I think at the end of the day, it's because Nesta refusing to train with Cassian makes him feel like a failure. He already feels like a failure in so many ways. He's not educated. He's a brute. And the one thing he's good at, which is fighting, training, war, he has his opportunity to share it with her, to shed some light on his good qualities, and she denies him of that. And so, by denying him of that opportunity, she also robs him of his power and his self-confidence. Quote, he had never failed at anything, not like this. And he'd been so stupidly desperate, so stupidly hopeful that he hadn't believed she'd truly refuse. Until today, when he'd seen her on that rock and known she wanted to get up, but watched her shut down the instinct, watch her clamp that steel will over herself.
Oh, Cassian, her sweet baby angel boy. He understands a lot of things, even though he acts out, but he understands his needs. Quote, Cassian had needed the contact. This is like when he's with Farah and they bump into each other, which is sad that all she does is bump into him. And then he was like, Cassian needed the contact. Always needed physical contact, he learned, probably thanks to a childhood spent with precious little of it. Oh, all right. So we have Nesta, who's a very avoidant attachment. And then we have Cassian, who is anxious attachment.
I thought you almost said Amy.
Oh, no. 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 Do you want to talk about that?
No. No.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, that's done. No, I was just going to say that's a rough combo, but I don't want to say that. It's hard. It's a combination that both have to work to overcome.
Yeah, TMI. My fiance is avoidant attachment. Amy is anxious attachment. It's a tough combo.
It's a tough combo, but you know what? Everyone can work to become confident attachment. Everyone can get there.
Everyone can. It just requires work.
Yeah.
We get a reminder of how soft Cassian's heart truly is when he's around Farah. After his conversation with Farah, Cassian looks at her and, quote, his high lady looked so young. He always forgot how young she truly was, considering what she'd already faced and achieved in her life. At 21, he'd still been drinking and brawling and fucking, unconcerned with anything and anybody except his ambition to be the most skilled Illyrian warrior since Aenelius himself. At 21, Farah had saved their world, mated, and found true happiness. This is another moment of Cassian not saying what he's really thinking, which I believe to be another reminder that Cassian feels like a failure. Farah has done so much, and it's taken Cassian 500 years to be where he is, and he's still a failure.
Yep.
Now, as Cassian and Farah contemplate what to do with Nesta, we see the environment reflect their confusion and pain. Quote, they sat in silence, the wind drifting past them. Mist gathered on the Sidra far below, and white plumes of smoke from countless chimneys rose to meet it. It's just a nice little bit of environment reflecting interiority.
This is just an appreciation of SJM's writing style. This is Cassian going to go kiss Farah on the cheek. Quote, he only got within an inch of her face before his lips met night kiss steel. The consistency that SJM has of always comparing Rhys to Night.
And Night kissed.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you. Do Nesta's actions warrant the title of traditional antihero? And how does the characterization of a female antihero challenge the reader?
What is the traditional definition of an antihero? So an antihero is defined as a central character in a story, movie, or drama who lacks conventional heroic attributes. No duh.
So we have many different types. You have charismatic like Han Solo. like Captain Jack from Pirates of the Caribbean, even have Deadpool. But I think what I also like are the variations like Snape from Harry Potter, who is very unlikable and yet kind of working towards the greater good.
Right. And in Nesta's case, she's not really working towards anything, right? She's not working towards a greater good. She wants nothing good for anybody, including herself. And that makes her very unlikable. But she is also the main female protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of ways, she is an anti-hero because she's not written in a way that we're meant to like her. But she is written in a way that we're meant to understand her. And I think that Nesta possesses qualities, traits, and she's at a point in her life that if anybody empathizes with her or doesn't empathize with her or knows of someone who has traits like Nesta's, that's not usually a period of life that you enjoy. It's not something about yourself that you like, or it's not something about others that you like. And so inherently, everything about Nesta is challenging us as readers. Can we like someone despite everything that they're doing that is an aspect of us or people around us that we hate?
Yeah. Going back a little bit, backtracking of Nesta isn't really working towards the greater good. Not at this moment. But she will, and like give it a couple chapters, and she will, right? Nesta as a whole, like taking in consideration when she works towards the greater good, reminds me a lot of Han Solo. Han Solo was in it for the money. Continue to be in it for the money. Honestly, wasn't until like movie 3 that he was like, I guess I have some moral obligations here. It was always about the money. The only difference is that two differences. One, Han Solo is, and we're talking about Star Wars in case someone's like, what's that? One, Han Solo is a man. Two, he's charismatic. Nesta will go and fight for the greater good, not because she wants to, just to protect Elaine, because she's kind of dragged into it. And that's okay. That's part of people's journey, right? Like even with Snape, he didn't go into it because he wanted to protect people. He went into it because of a bargain, because he loved Lily. Like a lot of things with anti-heroes is that there's no like, the greater good doesn't mean they have that desire to do the greater good. They kind of get pulled into it and eventually care. I just don't think people are used to a female anti-hero and an anti-hero who is so good at articulating their own self-hatred.
Yeah. I want to first look at it from the point of view of someone who is not able to empathize with Nesta, who maybe has a Nesta in their life. It's easier to dislike the person for their flaws than it is to accept that they have pain that is driving their actions, especially if you don't feel that same level of self-hatred towards yourself that they might feel towards themselves, right? I think that accepting that people are nuanced, that their bad actions are not inherently malicious, but are inherently driven from self-hatred or by self-hatred is a hard pill to swallow because we want to feel wronged. We want to feel justified in being wronged, just like Nesta wants to feel justified in spiting her father. She doesn't get to be justified at the end. I mean, that's arguable, but he did try, and she doesn't want to give him points for trying. And maybe he doesn't deserve points for trying, but it has ruined the very shaky ground of her justification of hating him. And I think also, if you have a Nesta in your life, it's hard to like Nesta because it forces you to examine yourself and the Nestas in your life and confront that.
It's funny because I love Nesta as a character. I feel like she'd be one of the first people I wouldn't want in my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I adore her as a character, not a person that I want as a friend. Like, once Nesta loves you, she's a ride or die and stuff. But there's some like core character attributes that she is who she is. And I don't like it. And I couldn't be friends with someone like that. But I also really love her as a character. I think there's some things that I relate to that I can identify with. And I think that's like a lot of people can relate and to identify about different types of things. She does the right thing for such wrong reasons. Like when she tells Farah about the baby, it's the right thing, but for the worst reasons. And she has to face that. I mean, it's the same thing with her dad, right? Her dad went to go help, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. To your point that you wouldn't want to be friends with this person. So to some extent, I've been Nesta. And people decided to stay friends with me at a time in my life I probably didn't deserve it. And I think about myself and the friends I've made who've been Nesta, who I then don't spend time with anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because when you're like Nesta, like Emery, like Quinn, who haven't gone through their healing, it is easier to be friends and go on that journey together.
Yeah.
But once you've gone through the healing, I can guarantee Nesta at the end of the book would not tolerate Nesta at the beginning of the book because you've already done the healing and it's not your responsibility to go on that journey with someone else who hasn't done the healing yet.
It's funny because I'm like, you have not been Nesta. I think everyone has those moments of like they can identify with it. Like even I know what aspects you're identifying. I'm like, you're not a bitch like Nesta. Even when you're sad, like you're just not a bitch. But to your point, yeah, Nesta wouldn't want to be friends with Nesta. And it's okay that Farah wants distance from her. I mean, there's a lot, once we get into it later in this book of like why Farah distanced herself, she was wrong. She was wrong to have not been there for her sister. And that is, I think she didn't want to be there for her sister because she was busy being part of, like she saw her path to happy and was taking it. And helping Nesta would have delayed her path to happy. And I think that it was very selfish of Farah to not delay her path to her happy ending and just be there for her sister, because that would have required revisiting trauma and revisiting that their dad failed them and that maybe Nesta has other types of trauma that she would have to accept and open up to. A lot of people failed Nesta in this book to get to this point. So when it comes into the greater good is her own healing. And to that, I believe she is an anti-hero. Let's wrap this shit up.
Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us Thursday for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks discussion from today's chapters of Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Silver Flames.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. And don't forget to join us as we keep the analysis going by subscribing to our Substack to get more insights into the romantasy and romance genres. Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com. Bye.
Bye. We are going to so many book conventions the next couple months, and do I need a whole new wardrobe?
I think so, because I'm not prepared for weather in New York.
Honestly, I am not about the fast fashion. I am all about Quince and how they prefer quality over quantity.
Quince makes high-quality wardrobe staples using premium fabrics, like 100% silk and organic cotton.
They even have a lightweight cotton cashmere sweater that's perfect for the changing seasons, especially in New York. And they have amazing spring colors, so I'll be able to be very versatile with all of the cute sweaters they have.
Quince clothing is consistently rated 4.5 to 5 stars by thousands of customers. Real people wearing these pieces every day actually love them. And honestly, they're better than some of my favorite expensive brands.
I personally love my boyfriend sweater that I got last year, and I still wear it all the time. And I'm sad that it's going to be warm, so I guess I'm going to have to find another sweater.
Stop waiting to build the wardrobe you actually want. You don't need a closet full of options. You just need pieces that work for you.
Right now, go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping and 365-day returns.
That's a full year to wear it and love it. And you will.
Quince is now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last.
Go to quince.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns.
Quince.com/booktalk.
I'm preparing to get married, which means I'm thinking a lot about what it means to merge finances. And I think I'm going with Chime.
Chime isn't just another banking app. They unlock smarter banking for everyday people with products like MyPay, giving you access to up to $500 of your paycheck anytime and getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Some of these old banks still don't do this.
We're at Romantasy BookCon, and I don't get paid for another 2 days. I could really use Chime right now.
I don't get paid for another 2 days too. I'm really sad it's not stopping me from buying everything, but it is also making me want to switch to Chime.
Because they don't have overdraft fees, minimum balance fees, or monthly fees.
You can also earn up to 3% APY on savings. That's 7 times higher than a traditional bank.
It's also rated 5 stars by USA Today for customer service because they have real humans 24/7.
And with the Chime card, it's the new way to build credit history with your own money and get rewarded every single day.
There's no annual fees, no interest, and no strings attached. Who can resist that?
Chime is not just smarter banking, it's the most rewarding way to bank. Join the millions who are already banking fee-free today.
It just takes a few minutes to sign up. Head to chime.com/booktalk. That's chime.com/booktalk. BOOKTALK.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services, a secured Chime Visa credit card, and MyPay line of credit provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. MyPay eligibility requirements apply, and credit limit ranges $20 to $500. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. See chime.com/fees info. Advertised annual percentage yield with Chime Plus status only. Otherwise, 1.00% APY applies. No min balance required. Chime card on-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. See chime.com for details and applicable terms.
Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.